I was in the middle of having my hair pinned up when I noticed something strange. I perceived a sharp, smoky smell slowly creeping into the room. At first, I thought it was someone burning food in the kitchen, but then came the coughing from one of my bridesmaids. It was loud and sudden. One of my bridesmaids rushed to the window, yanked it open, then stumbled back. "Smoke!" she gasped, waving her hands like she was trying to swat it away. Then, like dominoes, everyone began coughing. Makeup artists, bridesmaids, and even the wedding planner. People grabbed tissues and ran for the door. I jumped up, heart pounding, still in my robe and slippers, and followed them out. The hallway was already filling with gray smoke. My chest tightened and my eyes stung. Someone yelled, "Get outside!" We burst through the doors into the sunlight, blinking against the sudden brightness. And that's when I saw it. Big, ugly flames dancing just outside the side of the venue. People gathered in a messy circle, pointing, whispering. Some backed away, others stepped closer. I couldn't see clearly through the crowd, but I heard someone scream. Then came the words that made my stomach drop. "It's the wedding dress!" I froze, and my ears rang. My body went cold all over. That couldn't be right. Not my dress. Not the dress I'd waited months for. The one I'd only just seen an hour ago, hanging so perfectly in its plastic wrap, like a dream waiting to come true. No one moved at first, and then I did. I pushed through the crowd, barefoot and breathless, praying it was a mistake. But lo and behold, it wasn't. My name is Chloe, and today is my wedding day. I'm marrying the man of my dreams, Liam. Kind, patient, with the softest eyes and the kind of laugh that makes you want to laugh too, even when you don't know why. We met 3 years ago, and from the very first moment, I knew something was different. And now, here we are. Today, the day I've waited for, dreamed about, and planned down to the tiniest detail. The flowers, playlist, cake, and the seating chart that nearly made me cry last week. But most of all, the dress. It was hung quietly near the window, sunlight kissing its silky folds. I stood in front of it, not touching, just staring. My fingers itched to reach out, but I didn't, and not yet. I wanted to remember this moment exactly as it was. Soft light, the sound of birds outside, the smell of fresh flowers and hairspray. The way the fabric shimmered like water. "This is really happening," I had whispered to no one in particular. "Damn right it is," Jess, one of my bridesmaids, said from behind me. "Now get in your robe and get ready for your makeup." I turned around, grinning, and everyone in the room giggled. The bridal suite was full of energy. Music played low in the background, some soft pop song I didn't even hear clearly, and girls moved around like butterflies. Hairpins clicked, lip gloss tubes opened and snapped shut, and steam from curling irons danced in the air. The venue was perfect, like something out of a magazine. Tall glass windows, soft white curtains, and golden chairs waiting in neat rows outside. The sun was bright, but not too hot. Just warm enough to keep everyone smiling. Even the sky seemed to agree that today was special. I slipped into my robe, a silky white one with bride written in gold on the back. Jess handed me a mimosa, and we all raised our glasses. "To love," she said. "To Liam and Chloe," someone else added. "To finally getting out of group chats." Sarah laughed, and we all cracked up. Makeup started soon after. The artist, Jules, I think her name was, worked quietly but smiled often. Her hands were steady. She called me gorgeous every 5 minutes and told me my skin was a dream. I liked her instantly. While I sat still, eyes closed, as she dusted shimmer on my eyelids, my thoughts wandered back to the dress. I had seen it online first, an Instagram post with a bride standing in the middle of a forest. The caption said, "When you know, you know." And I knew. I tracked down the designer, booked an appointment, and tried it on. The moment I looked in the mirror, I cried. So did my mom and Jess, who accompanied me for the fitting. It wasn't just fabric and thread, it was me. All the versions of me I'd ever been wrapped into one beautiful moment. And now it was mine. Custom fitted, hand stitched lace, and buttons all down the back like little pearls. There's a long train that made me feel like royalty. Chloe, Sarah said suddenly, pulling me out of my thoughts. Don't forget to write your vows. You still haven't, right? I have them in my head, I said, sipping my drink. You said that last night. I'll write them down. I promise. You better, she teased. We'll snatch that mic from you and freestyle our own vows. You'd love that, I grinned. Jess and Sarah were the closest to me among my circle of friends, and I am so happy they are sharing this moment with me. The girls moved on to doing their own makeup and fixing each other's hair. I stood up quietly and walked back to the dress. I reached out this time, letting my hand rest on the fabric. It was cool and smooth, and for a second I imagined Liam seeing me in it, his face lighting up and that crooked smile he always gave me when he was proud. I can't believe this is mine, I whispered. I didn't know then that this would be the last time I ever touched it. Back to the event of the day, the moment I saw it was my wedding dress, my heart stopped. My legs felt weak as I stumbled back, and for a brief second I couldn't breathe. I heard shouting, voices overlapping in panic, but everything felt far away. My dress was burning. My dream dress was burning. At this moment, someone else raced back into the bridal suite, and I heard them shout, "It's gone! The dress is gone!" The beautiful, perfect dress I dreamed of for years was reduced to ash. It was unrecognizable, just blackened, twisted fabric, curling in the heat. Fire extinguisher was still been used on the raging fire, but I knew my dress was already gone. How could this happen? I kept asking myself. Why? The dress was supposed to be the symbol of everything. My moment. My dream. Liam's face when he saw me. The look in his eyes when I walked down the aisle. It was supposed to be our story, but now it was gone and burned to nothing. Chloe, Jess whispered, standing beside me. Her arms were around me in an instant, but it didn't help. Nothing could help, and I could feel the tears welling up, but I didn't even try to hold them back. I sobbed. It wasn't just the dress I was losing, it was the memory, the symbol. The one thing that was supposed to be perfect on my perfect day was ruined, and nothing could fix that. Everything's gonna be okay, Sarah said, trying to pull me closer, but I couldn't hear her. I couldn't hear anything except the crackling of the flames. How could I ever walk down the aisle now? How could I face Ethan? I barely heard the shout through my haze of panic. A voice rang out. I saw Mark carrying something burning out here. The words cut through the air, freezing me in place. My stomach lurched, and for a moment it felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. Mark, I whispered, barely able to get the word out. I didn't want to believe it. Not him, my fiancé's brother. But as more voices joined in, I realized I had no choice. They were all calling for him. Mark, where is he? The smoke was thick, and I could barely see anything through it. But then, from the edge of the chaos, I saw him. He stepped forward, his eyes darting nervously between everyone. His face was pale, like he'd just seen a ghost. He was breathing fast, his hands trembling, and I could feel a strange unease creeping into my bones. I saw the fire, Mark said, quickly, his voice shaky. It was the candle, I think. It tipped over, and I was just trying to protect the venue. I didn't want it to spread. His words were fast, too fast, like he was trying to explain something that didn't add up. His eyes avoided mine, never meeting my gaze. Liam, my fiancé, stepped forward, his face hardening. Mark. His voice was low, dangerous. What exactly happened? You brought the dress outside. Why would you do that? Mark flinched at the sound of his brother's voice, and I could see his body stiffen. He cleared his throat, but still couldn't meet Liam's eyes. I thought it was safer out there, just in case. It was on fire when I entered the room, and I had to bravely bring it out here. I thought it's either the dress or the venue. I couldn't tell if he was lying. He seemed so sure of himself, but his body language screamed the opposite. He couldn't hold still, and his hands fidgeted with the collar of his shirt, and his eyes kept shifting around, like he was searching for something that wasn't there. Liam looked torn. I saw it in his eyes. He wanted to believe his brother, But doubt had already planted itself. And I knew Liam well enough to know when something was bothering him. He wasn't convinced, and I could see his hands balling into fists at his sides. "I don't understand," I whispered, my voice breaking. The tears came faster now, unstoppable. "I don't understand why this would happen. Why would anyone do this?" Mark swallowed hard, glancing at Liam. "I told you I was just trying to help. I'm sorry, Chloe. I didn't mean for this to happen." But the way he said it, so rushed, so defensive, didn't sound like someone sorry. It sounded like someone trying to cover something up. Liam was silent, looking at Mark with a mix of confusion and frustration. He didn't know what to believe, and neither did I. But then, the truth began to settle deep in my chest, a heavy weight I couldn't shake. I looked at Liam, my heart breaking. I could see it in his eyes. He was struggling, torn between loyalty to his brother and his love for me. And I hated it. I hated that I was forced to feel this pain on our wedding day. I had never felt more alone than I did right in that moment. There was always something about Mark. From the very first time I met him, there was this distance and coldness between us. I'd always brushed it off, thinking he was just shy. But now, looking at him under the smoke-filled sky, I wondered if it was something more. Ever since I'd stepped into their house to meet Liam's family for the first time, Mark had been distant and quiet. He barely spoke to me. When I'd asked Liam about it, he'd just shrugged it off, telling me that Mark was a private person, that he was just withdrawn, but I didn't buy it. There was something off about him, something that made me feel uncomfortable whenever I was around him. He was never overtly rude, but there was always this strange unspoken tension in the air whenever it was just the two of us. And now, here he was, standing in front of me with that same closed-off expression, his words too quick, too practiced, like he wanted to disappear into the shadows and avoid everyone's questions. I glanced at Liam, my heart heavy. I wanted him to believe me, to see what I saw. But I knew this wasn't going to be easy. His brother was in the spotlight, and I had no idea what was really going on in his head. I felt lost. The dream wedding I had imagined in my mind, the one I had looked forward to for so long, was slipping away from me. The one person I had trusted to make this day perfect, my fiancé, was standing there, struggling to believe his brother or me, and I didn't know if I could blame him. What was I supposed to believe? After what felt like hours of chaos, I found myself sitting in a corner, my hands trembling as I tried to wipe away the tears. But then, a voice broke through the noise. "Chloe, you need to go through with this," my best friend Jess said softly. She knelt beside me, her hand on my shoulder. "Don't let Mark or the fire ruin your day. You've dreamed of this moment forever, and you deserve it." Her words were like a lifeline, pulling me back from the edge. I wanted to fight it, wanted to scream about how unfair it was, how everything was falling apart. But the truth was, Jess was right. I couldn't let my wedding day end like this. I needed to be strong, not just for me, but for Liam too. We quickly moved to find a backup dress. The clock was ticking and panic started creeping back. Most stores were closed, and the few that were open didn't have anything suitable. I couldn't even think about what I was going to wear. It felt like the universe was against me. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the wedding planner managed to find a vendor who had a dress. It wouldn't be the same as my dream gown, but it was something. The catch? It would take time to get to the venue. The guests, all already gathered, were asked to wait, and everyone agreed. "It's not your fault, Chloe," they said. "You don't have to apologize for this." An hour and a half later, the dress arrived. It was too big. The fabric wasn't what I had imagined. It wasn't the sleek, delicate thing I had always pictured, but a heavy, oversized gown with a long train. The seamstress worked quickly, using pins, needles, and thread to adjust it. My bridesmaids helped, pulling and tucking the fabric in places I didn't know could be fixed. The dress didn't fit perfectly, but it would do. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the unfamiliar reflection. I wasn't the bride I had envisioned. There was no sparkle, no joy, but there was quiet strength. I had to find it, or this day would be ruined. Not just for me, but for Liam, too. When I finally walked down the aisle, my feet felt heavy, the weight of everything pressing down on me. It wasn't how I had imagined it. There was no music swelling, no smiling faces, just a hushed silence. But I walked because I had to. Liam stood at the altar, his eyes full of concern and love, but even he looked like he was carrying the weight of the world. His hands were trembling, just like mine. We said our vows, our voices quiet but sincere. When it was done, when the vows were said and the rings exchanged, I couldn't help but feel a strange emptiness. The day wasn't what I had imagined, not by a long shot. But I had done it. I had walked down the aisle despite everything, and for the first time that day, I felt like I had at least one thing left, the strength to keep going. Even though the ceremony was far from perfect, it was real. And in that moment, that was all I could hold on to. The reception started slowly, and what ought to be a lively chatter was now replaced by awkward silence. People still clinked their glasses, tried to laugh and make small talk, but the tension in the air was thick. It was like everyone was walking on eggshells. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the good parts of the evening, but every time I glanced around the room, I noticed Mark, standing alone at the edge of the crowd, his face unreadable and distant. My heart twisted every time I saw him. I didn't know what to feel about him anymore. The part of me that wanted to believe he hadn't meant to burn my dress, that he had just been trying to save the venue, was fighting with a growing doubt. Why did he bring the dress outside? Why not just let someone else handle it? Why was he even near the bridal suite in the first place? These thoughts kept creeping into my mind, and no matter how hard I tried to push them away, they lingered. I watched him from across the room, his eyes avoiding mine. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that there was something I wasn't seeing, but I told myself I was overthinking. I needed to focus on the present, on the fact that I was now married to Liam, the man I loved. The day wasn't perfect, but I was going to make the most of it. When the music started, the energy shifted. I took a deep breath and stepped out onto the dance floor. I didn't care about the eyes on me or the whispers behind my back. This was my moment, my time to push everything else aside and just be in the now. I swirled in the middle of the dance floor, and for the first time all day, I let myself smile. I danced like I might never dance again, moving with a freedom that felt both strange and exhilarating. I could feel Liam's eyes on me, his face full of love and concern, but I just kept spinning, determined to have one moment where everything felt right. People watched, confused at my sudden burst of energy, my unexpected happiness. I could tell they didn't understand. One minute I was crying, devastated by the loss of my dress, and now I was dancing like nothing had happened. But in that moment, I didn't care. I didn't care about the dress, about Mark, or anything else. All that mattered was the here and now. And for once, I was going to choose happiness, even if it didn't feel perfect. Liam joined me on the dance floor, his face full of a mixture of concern and pride, but I could see that he didn't want to ask too many questions. He just let me be, let me dance, and I could feel that he was trying to make the most of this day, too. And so, we danced together in a room full of people who didn't really understand but who were willing to join us in pretending for just a little while longer that everything was okay. The music was starting to fade, the soft hum of conversation filling the gaps as the DJ adjusted the volume. Liam held me close as we continued to sway to the beat, my heart still racing from the dance, but for a brief moment, everything felt okay. Then, just as the room fell into that awkward lull between songs, something strange happened. A voice I didn't recognize at first, piped through the speakers. It wasn't the DJ, it wasn't part of the playlist. The DJ looked up, a confused expression on his face. He started waving his hands, trying to signal to someone, but it was too late. The voice rang out, clear and unmistakable, filling the room with words no one was prepared for. Mark's voice. I couldn't take it. I loved her first. I had to ruin something. The dress, it was the only thing I could get to. I just wanted to stop the wedding. The room froze and conversations halted in their tracks. I dropped my glass in shock, my hands trembling, and it hit the floor with a crash. I felt Liam stiffen beside me. His body went rigid, his face pale as he turned toward Mark, who stood across the room, his face a mask of horror. Mark's eyes were wide, his mouth opening and closing, like he wanted to speak, but the words wouldn't come. The room was silent, except for the echo of the confession playing over the speakers again. I couldn't take it. I loved her first. My mind raced. The world around me seemed to blur as those words sank in. The dress he'd burned, the hurt, the betrayal, the strange moments I'd brushed off, the odd tension between Mark and me, suddenly all clicked into place. I remembered the uncomfortable silences, the lingering stares that I'd tried to ignore. Mark had been acting strangely around me ever since I met Liam. He'd always seemed cold, distant, but now I saw it for what it really was. I looked at Liam, his face frozen in disbelief, his mouth moving soundlessly. His eyes locked with Mark's, but there was nothing but confusion and pain in his gaze. Mark stammered out an apology, but it was too late. The damage was done. He tried to deny it, his voice shaking, his eyes darting around the room, but no one believed him anymore. His words were empty, like a balloon losing air. The truth had come out, loud and clear, and no one in that room was going to forget it. I wanted to scream, run, or even tear my wedding dress off and throw it in the fire myself, but instead I stood there, rooted to the spot, feeling like I was sinking into the floor. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed it all? The guests started murmuring, casting sideways glances at Mark, their expressions shifting from curiosity to judgment. Whispers rippled through the crowd like a wave, and I could see the truth dawning on their faces, too. Mark had burned my wedding dress on purpose. And the reason, he'd been in love with me all along. Liam's face hardened, his jaw tight with anger and disbelief. He took a step toward Mark and punched him hard in the nose. People gathered immediately to pull him away from Mark. I wish Liam had beaten Mark a little more. Liam was staring at Mark, his eyes wide with disbelief and something else. Anger, hurt, betrayal. I had never seen him like this before. Mark, Liam said, his voice cold but shaking, what the hell is wrong with you? Mark, still standing there, looking like a deer caught in headlights, didn't say anything at first while holding his bleeding nose. He opened his mouth, closed it again, and then finally managed to speak. Liam, You burned her dress, Liam cut him off, his voice rising. You did this on purpose? You knew what you were doing? Mark looked around like he was searching for a way out, but there was none. Everyone was watching, waiting. His hands were trembling, his face a mess of confusion and guilt. I didn't mean... It was an accident, he stammered. But no one believed him anymore. Not after what we'd all just heard. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt a lump rise in my throat, and my chest tightened, like I couldn't breathe. I turned away from the confrontation, with tears blurring my vision, as I walked out of the reception hall, my footsteps heavy, the sound of voices behind me, Liam shouting at Mark, guests murmuring in disbelief, faded into the background. I didn't want to hear anymore. I didn't want to be part of this anymore. The day I had dreamed of, the day I had waited for, had shattered into pieces. I walked quietly outside, the cool night air hitting my face like a slap. I stood there for a long time, trying to gather myself, but the tears kept coming. I wanted to scream, to ask why this was happening, but I couldn't. I couldn't even wrap my mind around it. Inside, the fallout was just beginning. Liam was furious, his voice loud as he confronted Mark in front of everyone. "You're dead to me," he spat. "I can't believe you would do this to me and her." His words stung, each one like a slap, but Mark just stood there. Some guests didn't know what to think. Some of them muttered that Mark had been talking like that for years, and that it was just his weird way of expressing things. But even those who tried to defend him couldn't ignore the truth. There was no hiding what Mark had done. Others were less forgiving. Whispers filled the room, harsh and judgmental. "What kind of person does that?" one woman said, shaking her head. "That's just pure evil." I heard the words, but they didn't reach me. I couldn't process any of it. Guests began leaving in awkward silence. They didn't know what to say, or maybe they didn't want to be around when the family started tearing itself apart. I could see their faces, their confusion, their discomfort, and I just wanted to disappear. Liam came out to find me later. His face was hard and his jaw was tight. He said nothing at first, just stood there, looking at me like he was trying to find the right words. But he didn't have any. Neither of us did. After a long moment, he finally spoke, his voice soft, but filled with pain. "Chloe, I don't know what to say. I don't know if I can ever forgive him for this, for what he did to you, to us." "We will get through it," I said to him as we held each other in a tight hug. Liam and I left the reception venue back to our hotel. Even as our phones were blowing up with text messages, we decided to make the most of ourselves and not let anybody come between us and scatter what we share. If, for anything, the scandal exposed Liam's brother Mark, and we have decided to cut ties with him while we hold tenaciously to what we have.
If you loved this twist, just wait. There's more where that came from. Watch the next revenge story now and see karma strike again. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep the stories coming.